Day two of the tampering window was pretty slow, not just for the Bengals, but for the entire NFL. But why haven't the Bengals done anything? Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow, along with your host, James Rapien. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, bringing you coverage of your team every day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So go subscribe on YouTube, hit the follow button anywhere you get your podcasts. We will be delivered to your devices via notification when we upload our content every day for your listening pleasure or viewing pleasure, and you can join that first listen club with all the other Bengals fans out there checking out Locked On Bengals to start their days. And James, the Bengals didn't do anything, at least as of the time of recording, which is about 8:40 p.m. Eastern time here on Tuesday night. No new moves for the Bengals on Tuesday. Samaje Perine leaves for greener pastures, and by greener, I mean money. Samaje cashed in.
Get that money. Get that money.
About $3.75 million per year for him exactly $3.75 million per year for him. $7.5 million deal over 2 years with the Denver Broncos. More than I thought Samaje Perine was going to get. Good for him. I thought he was a solid player, a great RB2 for the Bengals. Leaves a void on pass snaps for the Bengals in the backfield, where he was heavily used as a pass protector and as a check down receiver. And, just in terms of efficiency at RB2, the veteraniness of Samaje Perine and taking what was there, getting downhill, getting those 4 or 5 yards when they were available is something the Bengals would need to replace. And we could be looking at an entirely revamped running back room with the departure of Samaje Perine, which wasn't entirely unexpected. I thought they probably would want him back, but not at this number. I do not fault the Bengals for not going as high as Denver went on Perine, James. And so the Bengals now stand to gain 3 compensatory picks. I don't think that's how things are going to finish, though. And there's a lot of Bengals fans out there that are feeling the pressure, feeling the anxiety of Bengals free agencies long past. We haven't felt this for a few years with the Bengals of when is that move going to happen?
Yep.
Is it going to come?
Yeah, I get it. I understand it. And it's something that, look, my phone has been blowing up like I'm Adam Schefter, but it's not insider news. It's, hey, what are the Bengals doing? What are they doing? Are they going to sign this guy? Oh, my God, Perine left. What are they doing? Is this like Perine? I'm getting Samaje Perine text because he left. And look, that's what happens when you haven't made any outside additions. If the Bengals had added a running back or added a safety or added a position that, re-signed Hayden Hurst, I think people would have calmed a little. But as of now, like you said, none of that has happened. And let's talk about the safety spot a little bit, because I think people are panicking some. First off, I'm not dealing with your Dax Hill slander. Dax Hill is going to be a really, really good football player, elite athlete. There's no reason to believe that he won't transition and be a good safety, maybe great safety for the Cincinnati Bengals. I get it's an unknown, but that's a natural transition for a first-round pick, and that's what he was last year. We knew he was going to start. The other part of this, Lou Anarumo talking about it too. They've scouted the safeties. They've looked at all the free agent safeties. He said, I hope we get one that fits us best. They're looking, and they're in the market. And I think part of it's the Bengals, but part of it's the NFL. As of now, it's been kind of a slow burn when it comes to some of these position groups and some of these top players. Mike Gesicki, a guy we talked about on Monday's show technically. He's out there, as is every single big name tight end, including Hayden Hurst, right? And so we could go down the line here. And yeah, a lot of the big name safeties, I would say, Jessie Bates headlining them is gone. But a lot of them are still available. If the Bengals could get Juan Thornhill to go along with Dax Hill, to me, I don't know if that would be a better 1-2 punch than they had last year at safety, but it's more versatile. It's more athletic. It's younger. There's a lot of benefits to it, to me, And so my message would be take a second, breathe. And yes, the Bengals better do something. Totally agree with you. But let's see what they do first before we make this final verdict, because free agency hasn't even officially started as we've recorded this. It's just the legal tampering period, and there are a lot of top talent. In by top talent, I don't mean superstars, but top talent is still available, and top targets for the Bengals are still available that could complete this roster. So let's just take a second and see what they do.
What moves have happened, James? Because I went through this exercise, and I'll tell you my answer before you tell me yours. But what players have signed deals, or what trades have happened that you would have wanted the Bengals to be in on? The Shaq Mason deal, the trade. I would have liked the Bengals to have considered that option. I would have liked the Bengals to have considered
to play left guard, though, because I thought about that.
Yes,
but he's a right guard. He's a stud right guard.
He's really good.
You know, he is really good at right guard. You're not moving Kappa. He's your best lineman.
Right.
Because I thought about that too. I agree with you. I mean, you're getting him for pennies.
Yeah, and so like there's a couple trades. Stephon Gilmore, I would have
at
least kicked the tires on that trade. I
Fifth
would
rounder.
be looking at Laramie Tunsil and at least finding out what the price is. Right? Maybe the price doesn't fit what you want to do, but I would at least be interested. There's no indication the Bengals are playing in any trade markets. Not that we even know necessarily, but we do know that the Bengals are notoriously difficult to trade with, according to other NFL teams and anonymous sources when surveyed about front offices in the NFL year in, year out. So we know that is out there, but like what other moves have happened where it's like, oh yeah, the Bengals should have been in on that move. Maybe Vonn Bell. Maybe you think the Bengals should have done the Vonn Bell deal, right? Maybe Ogoronkwo did the Browns sign. Maybe you like that deal. Maybe I don't know. Name a guy.
Well, can I mention that? Because I think there are some that say the Vonn Bell deal, for example. I can't for sure say that right now. Let me see what happens to these other safeties.
Right.
This isn't hindsight. I went after Juan Thornhill in our preview, our free agency plans. Essentially, I was like, oh well, why not try to get a little young? He's not much younger, but a little younger, more athletic. You let Dax Hill move around a bit more, and I get the familiarity with Vonn Bell, and being familiar is great. And I think he's a really good player. I think the Bengals might be able to upgrade that spot. I don't think Dax might not be as good as Jessie Bates was in year 5 and year 2 in his first year starting, but I think he's got a heck of a ceiling. And so there's one. Other deals though, I'll just, and there might be one or two that slip through the cracks, but not many. There aren't many.
Right? It's I understand that
like the Darren Waller trade. Or do you want that contract? Like, I don't think so. I mean, there's reliable, there's unreliable. I like the idea of it, but there's nothing that really stands out to me so far that's happened that the Bengals should be kicking themselves, including Jawan Taylor, $20 million a year. We talked about this before we started recording. It's a lot. That's a whole lot of money, Jake.
It's a bit of a gamble, right? And if there's a tackle that you're going to spend money on, maybe you overpay on one. Because what do we say before free agency? Maybe it's time to just go overpay and get a guy. And that's what the Chiefs did. And then we turn around and be critical of the contract because it is an overpay. And it's maybe more of an overpay than we expected. But the point I'm trying to make here is, yes, it's fair to be frustrated that nothing has happened. But look around the NFL, and in general, nothing has happened. The 49ers made a big splash at the top of the interior defensive line market. The Chiefs made a big splash in Jawan Taylor, who we've been skeptical of, and maybe he works out there, right? We've talked about the reasons that it could work out there. We talked about it yesterday. But when you look at the specific things that have happened so far, there aren't a ton of things where you're like, oh, the Bengals should have been all over that. There are a few, like Kelvin Beachum going back to Arizona at the price he went back to Arizona for. You know, I would have been on that. We DM'd about that last night.
I sent you that. Yeah. Oh my God. $3 million. Whew.
Yeah. And
it was. He's so low.
Way in his 30s, but if I'm the Bengals, like that price is where I'm at.
$1 million per decade, baby.
Right. Let's talk about who's left though, James, because you know, we've alluded to this. These markets haven't moved at some positions that I think the Bengals are targeting in the markets we think they're going to play in. So let's get into some of those guys that are still out there at some of these positions and what the Bengals can do to make free agency great coming up next.
The NBA trade deadline has passed, and well, now you have to decide who is a real contender, not a pretender, a real contender. Are the Sacramento Kings the 2 seed in the West? The Sacramento Kings. Maybe you're bullish on them. Maybe you think that LeBron and the Lakers, even without LeBron, that they're going to make a run to the postseason and then make a run when they get there. The point is you need to get to FanDuel right now because you can wager on all of those things and so much more. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance to add a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So maybe you want to say, all right, LeBron James is going to hit the over with points. Anthony Davis over in rebounds. Anthony Davis certainly not hitting the over in points right now. Oh, shot at Anthony Davis. Don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more about the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, James, let's talk about some of the guys that are still out there that can make this free agency a successful one for the Cincinnati Bengals, because a lot of the guys that we talked about as potential targets for the Bengals in free agency are still available. Almost all of them, in fact, are still available. And we can start at the safety position because this is one where I think there are a lot of indications from rumblings to Lou Anarumo straight up saying it would be nice to have a veteran in the room, where the only guys that have signed are like Donovan Wilson goes back to the Cowboys for $8 million a year. Jimmy Ward goes to the Texans. Obviously, Bates signs the big deal with Atlanta, but Jordan Poyer, who I don't necessarily think is in the cards for the Bengals, still out there, unsigned. CJ Gardner-Johnson retweeting the Bengals stuff again on Tuesday night after he deleted the previous retweets of Bengals stuff. And, that's probably a negotiating tactic or whatever, but he's back. Whatever happened last night, he's back to retweeting stuff today. Julian Love, Taylor Rapp, Juan Thornhill, Adrian Amos, John Johnson, Nasir Adderley. That's a lot of guys that can come be a veteran safety and can probably do a lot of what Vonn Bell did. And some of those could be better players.
I agree. And that's why I don't want to – you don't want to be overly critical, but you don't want to just be completely passive. And I think it's pretty simple. Of course they need to do something, but I'm not going to torch them and be really, really critical of them when they could potentially get better at that spot. And there are multiple guys still out there, multiple options, realistic options, not pie in the sky, Jessie Bates type of contracts, where you could see these guys come to Cincinnati, one of them, and suddenly you feel pretty good about that safety room. So I don't want to completely dismiss it. Like I said, at the same time, you're right. You just went through 4 options? I think there's at least 4 options.
You said 8? Maybe 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Guys.
I mean, and it depends, right? Are you talking about upgrading or getting the same? And so the same to me would be a slight downgrade because of familiarity. But if you're telling me
Bates, going from Bates to Hill, like maybe we'll see.
It's hard. It would be like going from Bates 2022 to Bates first year starting. Like that's a big leap. And so Dax Hill's going to have some growing pains, but I think he's going to be really good. And I don't think that's a secret that I think he's going to be good, and I'm bullish on him. But there are a lot of guys. And if you're worried about the comp picks, then John Johnson, the third's your guy. By the way, he was a captain. I was doing a little more research. Everyone loves captains. He was a captain with the Rams. And so you never know. It randomly stumbled into that, and it's like, oh, well, the Bengals have drafted captains. He was a captain with Sean McVay. You never know.
You could see it. I don't know how worried about comp picks they really are. I know I've talked about it a lot. That could just be me projecting. Just so everybody's like clear about that. I think that when you have a 3rd round comp pick available to you, that's worth paying attention to. The 5th and the 7th rounders that they're in line for because of the Vonn Bell and the Samaje Perine deals, I don't think you even think about those. Those aren't even part of the calculus. And furthermore, I would say the third rounder, if you could go get a guy you think is a really good fit for your team, I wouldn't worry about the third rounder either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a way where you can target the guys that are going to fit your team and help you be in that Super Bowl contention part of the NFL again. And you can perhaps keep that third round pick. That's all I'm talking about when we talk about the comp picks.
Sure. And I think they're aware of the third rounder, of course. They know. And at this stage now, because with every day that passes, regardless of the tier, I feel like the money, there's a chance that the money goes down or becomes more reasonable for their targets. I think they're hopeful that they can find a way to do that and still keep that third rounder. They're not going to sweat about a Samaje Perine comp pick. Mm-hmm. But if you can keep that third rounder, the big money free agent that you lose in Jessie Bates, that's nice when it comes to future. That doesn't mean it's going to stop them from signing one of these safeties or signing a running back to replace Samaje Perine or signing a tight end. That might not be Hayden Hurst. But it's certainly something to take into account. And like I said, the longer this goes, the less likely it is that you impact that third rounder. And not that that's what's keeping them back. I don't want that. And that's been the narrative. Oh, they're worried about comp picks. I don't think it's that. But you also didn't get like a stud right tackle, right, that would fill in for Jessie Bates. And you don't feel like any of these safeties are Jessie Bates. You're not going to spend that type of money on his replacement because you already have Dax Hill and you're going to sign someone that isn't at that tier of money. So why not try to protect that third rounder if you can?
Right. They drafted Dax Hill last year because they knew Jessie Bates was leaving. Right? We all agree on that. You talk about tight end.
I mean, yeah, I would say that's fair for the most part. And he's the best player on their board. But yeah, that's a big part of it.
I mean, it's a big part of it. Like, if they think, maybe they draft him anyway, but it's at least an insurance.
But then Bell would have been out the door, and we wouldn't have even talked about them resigning him.
Right.
You know. So.
But on the tight end topic, since you mentioned maybe they bring in a tight end, I mean, the markets where we thought the Bengals were going to sign guys have not moved at all. Dalton Schultz, Mike Gesicki, Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, Foster Moreau, Irv Smith, Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, some of the top tight ends still out there. The guys that have signed deals at tight end, you tell me if you've heard of them. Tell me in the comments if you've heard of these guys. Josh Oliver, the tight end 3, 4 in Baltimore. He played a lot this year for Baltimore. Josh Oliver, Johnny Smith was traded. But the other guys that have signed, Andrew Beck and Chris Manhertz. I haven't heard of either of them. They signed $3 million-ish deals with their respective teams, 2 years, $3 million a year. The tight end market hasn't moved. The safety market has hardly moved. We've seen some movement at the top of the tackle market, but we tried to say that we didn't think they were playing in the $20 million a year tackle market anyway. Not this year anyway. Mm-hmm. Maybe next year, right? That you can see it next year. And if Jonah Williams walks, if he doesn't bounce back and he walks, if they don't find the replacement in the draft, you could see it next year. But some of these markets, I mean, running backs, has there been a single? Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert re-signed with the Dolphins today.
Reasonable. By the way, reasonable, not crazy money.
Raheem Mostert signed for less than Samaje Perine.
And he's better.
He's faster.
I think he's better. He's just more injury prone.
Yeah, the injuries are certainly a factor there. But like all these positions, so like say by the end of the week, they've signed Foster Moreau, they've signed why not Jermaine Illuminor? But maybe it's Cameron Fleming. But like they've signed a swing tackle, and they've signed maybe it's Taylor Rapp at safety. Are we okay?
Am I okay? I mean, I think that if you're able to stabilize the safety spot and add an offensive lineman, I think everybody will just be. So, yeah, of course. I wouldn't prefer Taylor Rapp. I'm kind of in on Juan Thornhill.
I mean, sure, but like I'm picking a guy at safety
I get it.
Who's like in the bucket. They're all buckets. Everything's a bucket at this time of year for me.
I think Thornhill is ahead of that, like on top of that bucket.
That's close.
Is it? Because that now I definitely want Thornhill if it's close, because then it's similar money. And I
It
should
be
like
similar
Taylor
money.
Rapp because he has a similar last name to me. The first 3 letters are the same, and yet I'm in on Juan Thornhill.
I'm not sure why you think Juan Thornhill's so much better than Taylor Rapp. I mean, we liked him a lot in the draft for sure, but like I don't see them as really disparate players. And there's some familiarity with Rapp with the Rams connection.
I mean, we overplay that Rams connection a little.
Way back.
Yeah. I mean, we do. I mean, I just did it with John Johnson. Zach Taylor probably talked to John Johnson 3 times while he was in LA. Let's be honest, not many. Anyways, let's keep this free agency discussion going and put a bow on this. And who knows, maybe the Bengals will make a move by the time we get to next segment. But today's episode brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about the game app that lets you become a pro football GM. That's right. With Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and build a dynasty, whether it's hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms. Maybe you're trying to go after Jermaine Illuminor or Mike Gesicki, or you want to make that big trade for Darren Waller. By the way, Jake, I have a feeling I'm going to get crushed for saying that I'd be on the idea of trading for Darren Waller for a third. But with Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for making all of those decisions, and Locked On Bengals listeners will get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all capitals in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure you check it out today. To download the game, go to ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the App Store. Again, ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today.
So we'd be okay if they sign a safety, they sign a swing tackle, they sign a tight end. The dream that's still on the board. Let's talk about the dream, right?
Oh,
like is that Mike Gesicki, Jermaine Illuminor, Juan Thornhill? Is that it? I mean, those are some of the guys we've talked about.
Wouldn't it be Poyer if we're dreaming?
I mean, can they pay Poyer and Gesicki? I don't know what Gesicki's going to get paid.
I don't know either. Like, by the way, if you're the Jags and you franchise tagged Evan Ingram for $11 million, you feel kind of silly now, don't you?
Well, we'll see. The tight end market, what is it waiting for? Is stuff really waiting for Aaron Rodgers? Like we heard, I saw at least a few people talking about, and it doesn't make sense to me either. As you
know, because none of these guys are going to the Jets. They have 8 tight ends, including Uzomah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. But some people did say like, oh, some of this stuff is going to wait on. I don't understand why it would wait on.
In the tight end that Rodgers wants is Mercedes Lewis, who's older than us, still playing. Yeah, that was the report Diana Rossini had. I mean, so think about that. Like Foster Moreau, Austin Hooper, Hayden Hurst, Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz. Who knows? By the way, all of those guys, all of them. If your market's thin, and we don't know for sure, but if it's not as hot as you were thinking, you do want to do the Jermaine Pratt way, where he said it. He said, hey, Joe Burrow is going to be here. I should be here. I don't know if Jermaine Pratt took less or not. I don't know. But it seems natural, especially if you're a tight end. Linebacker is one thing. Tight end, you want to hitch your wagon to Joe Burrow. And that might mean Hayden Hurst just saying, hey, I'm going to come back for that 1 year, $3.5 million and keep catching passes because I think it's going to pay off. Or maybe it pays off big with a Mike Gesicki or Dalton Schultz or someone like that.
And we'll see, because the tight ends could still get paid.
They could.
The dominoes really haven't started falling like anywhere for guys that we thought would have a market. And Josh Oliver did get $7 million a year. So we do have that.
So then everybody's going to get $7 million if that's the case. Heck, you might be able to put on a few more pounds with Built Bar and get a contract at this rate. The
point is just that we don't know exactly where that is right now. Like we have a lot of linebacker contracts. We have a lot of interior defensive line contracts. We have a lot of edge contracts. Like we know how those positions are looking. If the Bengals want to sign a depth guy in the defensive line, it might cost them $5 million a year. Just looking at like the Jaron Reed deals and the Shai Tuttle deals and the Larry Ogunjobi deals, for example, like all of those are different data points at different skill levels. David Onyemata. And that kind of tells you that people are paying that position. Linebackers, we've talked about a lot with Jermaine Pratt's deal, for example, which, by the way, comes in, and this is new since we recorded last night, James. less than $7 million a year. It's not quite $21 million. It's 20.25 was the number in the end, I believe. So it's 6.75 million a year. The year one cap hit suggests that the Bengals are certainly going to spend more against the cap this year. They did diverge a little bit from their traditional structure in this deal. There was no year one roster bonus. The signing bonus was a little bit bigger than I thought it would be. And usually they would, instead of prorating that money, they would put that into year one of the deal. So the first year cap hit, $5 million or so. It's a little bit smaller. I thought that was going to be a typical, it's going to be spaced evenly out kind of contract. And instead, the Bengals did save a little bit against the cap this year in that deal. So that, again, is a little bit of a sign. Plus, they paid him $10 million on a less than $21 million deal, which is a lot of cash in year one for them, which could suggest that they're not cash poor, which is often a fear. And
they got that money. Don't worry.
And it suggests that they're trying to save a little bit of cap space this year. Like a little bit. $2 million here, $2 million there. That adds up to another player or two.
Well, and so when you're trying to sign Mike Gesicki, Jamal Williams, Jermaine Illuminor, and insert whatever tight end or whatever free safety you want to, or strong safety, I guess, but it doesn't really matter. Taylor Rapp, you want to go Juan Thornhill. If you're doing all of those things, then you gotta save that space and spend a little cash, Jake. That's all.
But they're doing it, is the point here.
I know.
That they're doing it, and that this is a breadcrumb that suggests that this is coming. We just need to be patient and wait and see what it's going to be. Like when they make a move, if we don't like it, we can rip it. If they go out there and spend a ton of money on Devin Bush or something that doesn't make any sense, we're going to rip them.
Who?
But if they go sign players that we like in positions where we think they need help, well, then we can react then. And for now, until those players start disappearing, and they haven't yet, there haven't been a whole lot of players I've really coveted that have been signed elsewhere. Coveted for the Bengals anyway.
Jamal Williams would be fun.
Sure. I mean,
as a back, I think he's an upgrade from Pirine. So if you're not spending a ton,
it depends on the price tag for me at running back. Because they're going to have the dead money hit from Mixon if they move on there.
I know you don't like running backs. I get it. You don't want to spend a lot. So I get it.
I want to spend the money on other positions.
I agree. Right. I'm not debating it. I'm just saying if you could upgrade Jamal Williams and a rookie might be better than Mixon and Pirine was in 2022. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not in a rush at running back. There's more important positions to me, but we'll see what the Bengals do, and we will have you covered here when the Bengals do something. Hopefully it's right after we finish recording this, James. We get back together and do another 10 minutes. Because
hopefully it's Wednesday, not Tuesday night, because we've been waiting long enough. Hopefully they wait until Wednesday. But
we did wait as long as
that's me selfishly saying that. That's all.
I mean, I am looking at my other monitor here just to make sure, and nothing.
Believe me,
nothing has happened.
Alert. Oh wait,
nothing has happened. Oh come on,
just gotcha.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Like I said, we're back when the Bengals make a move or tomorrow. Until then, Bengals fans, stay patient. I'm trying to. Hoo day, and have a good one.